Welcome to Concrete Block, the podcast where we break down the latest news and current events in a straightforward and unbiased manner. I'm your host, Walter, and I'm glad you're joining us today. We're starting off with a story that's been making headlines around the world. The conflict between Russia and Ukraine has been ongoing for years, and it seems like there's no end in sight. Recently, we've seen an increase in military recruitment efforts by the Russian government, despite calls for peace talks from the international community. According to reports, Moscow has renewed its efforts to recruit soldiers to fight in the war, with a significant surge in enlistment numbers over the past month. The city's main recruitment center is processing over 100 volunteers per day, with many of them motivated by financial hardship. It's worth noting that the Russian government has been using various tactics to encourage people to sign up, including touting alleged gains on the battlefield and spreading stories about supposed war crimes by Ukrainian forces. However, it's also important to consider the human cost of this conflict. NATO intelligence estimates that Russian forces are sustaining significant daily casualties, with over 250,000 soldiers and officers killed in the past 3 years. Additionally, an independent tally has verified the identities of over 100,000 Russian soldiers killed in the war. As we continue to follow this story, it's essential to remember that there are multiple perspectives and complexities involved. We'll strive to provide a balanced view of the situation without taking sides or promoting any particular agenda. It's also worth mentioning that this story is part of a broader context, with global implications and potential consequences for international relations. We'll be exploring these aspects in more depth as we continue our discussion. For now, let's take a brief pause. We'll be right back with more of today's top news on Concrete Block. Welcome back to Concrete Block. We're glad you're still with us as we dive into the world of international trade and politics. Today, we're exploring the complex relationship between the European Union and the United States, particularly in light of recent tariff disputes. As we've seen, the EU has been actively seeking to diversify its trade partnerships, engaging with countries that account for a significant percentage of global trade. This includes strengthening ties with Mexico, India, South Africa, and even China, despite the challenges that come with navigating these relationships. The EU's top officials have been busy meeting with leaders from around the world, discussing topics such as trade, commerce, and cooperation. Just this week, they agreed to launch talks for a free trade deal with the United Arab Emirates and confirmed a high-level summit in China in July. However, it's not all smooth sailing. The EU still needs to get previous agreements past its member states, including the Mercosur Accord clinched in December. France, in particular, has expressed concerns about the potential impact on European farmers. Meanwhile, the EU is also trying to balance its goals of promoting free trade while boosting the continent's competitiveness in manufacturing. This is a delicate task as they need to ensure that any new trade deals don't harm European industries or flood the market with cheap goods from other countries. As one expert noted, the EU will not find a market with the depth of demand and buying power that the US supplies. This highlights the challenges of replacing the US as a trade partner, at least in the short term. Despite these hurdles, the EU remains committed to its mission of cultivating trade ties elsewhere. As European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said, Europe continues to focus on diversifying its trade partnerships, engaging with countries that account for 87% of global trade, and share our commitment to a free and open exchange of goods, services, and ideas. As we consider the implications of these developments, it's clear that the world of international trade is becoming increasingly complex. With great power comes great responsibility, and it's up to the EU and its partners to navigate these relationships in a way that benefits everyone involved. Stay tuned for our final story of the day, right here on Concrete Block. Welcome back to Concrete Block. We're wrapping up today's show with a story that's been making headlines in the world of immigration and foreign policy. A U.S. district judge, Paula Sinis, has been locked in a battle with the Trump administration over the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a Salvadoran migrant who was deported to El Salvador despite having a valid work permit and an order protecting him from deportation. Now, let's break down the facts. Abrego Garcia was living in Maryland and had been granted a stay of deportation. However, he was detained and deported to El Salvador on March 15th, along with a group of alleged Venezuelan gang members. The Trump administration has acknowledged that Abrego Garcia's deportation was an error, but they've been slow to take action to bring him back to the U.S. Judge Sinis has been pushing the administration to provide information on Abrego Garcia's whereabouts and to facilitate his return to the U.S. However, the administration has argued that diplomatic relations can't operate at the speed demanded by the courts. The Supreme Court has weighed in, ruling that the administration must take steps to facilitate Abrego Garcia's release from custody in El Salvador and detail their plans to return him to the U.S. This case highlights the ongoing tensions between the Trump administration and the federal courts over immigration policy. Democrats and civil rights groups argue that the administration is violating foreign nationals' due process rights, while the administration claims that the courts are overstepping their authority. As we consider this story, it's essential to remember that the issue of immigration is complex and multifaceted. There are valid arguments on both sides, and it's crucial to approach the topic with nuance and empathy. The fate of individuals like Abrego Garcia hangs in the balance, and it's up to our leaders to find a solution that balances national security concerns with humanitarian considerations. That's all for today's Concrete Block. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, stay informed.